In quiet neighborhoods, power goes wrong.
The moving truck hadn't even left yet. Boxes were still stacked by the door. The smell of fresh paint hung in the air. And the lake, calm, glassy, perfect, stretched out behind my new home. Then I heard shouting. Not a knock. Not a greeting. Shouting. I stepped onto my back deck just in time to see 6 people in matching polo shirts marching down the shoreline toward my property like they owned it. Clipboards. Phones out. Attitude first. One woman pointed at the water and said the words that changed everything. You can't block access to our lake. I smiled. Because that lake? And every dock they were standing on? Belonged to me. I bought the property quietly. No announcements. No HOA meetings. No introductions. Just paperwork, signatures, and a wire transfer that closed a chapter I'd been planning for years. The house sat at the far end of the lake, slightly secluded, tree-lined, peaceful. That was intentional. I didn't want noise. I didn't want drama. I wanted water, privacy, and quiet mornings. What I didn't want was an HOA. The surrounding neighborhood had an HOA. They managed lawns, parking, holiday decorations. And apparently, in their minds, the lake. They'd used it for years. Fishing, kayaks, docking boats. No one ever questioned it. Because no one ever bothered to check who actually owned the shoreline. The leader introduced herself like a threat. I'm Karen, she said. HOA president. She gestured broadly. This lake is a community amenity. I looked past her, at the water. At the docks. At the property lines I knew by heart. Then back at her. Interesting, I said. Karen didn't ask. She demanded. You need to remove any barriers immediately. I raised an eyebrow. Barriers? She pointed to the temporary rope I'd placed across my own shoreline, clearly marked, non-confrontational. That restricts access. I nodded slowly. Correct. She smiled. You can't do that. The HOA owns this lake. I didn't argue. I didn't correct her. I just asked one question. Do you have a deed? She scoffed. We don't need one. Experience teaches you something valuable. When people think they're right, they reveal everything. Karen explained how the HOA would find me. Lien me. Take legal action. Her board members nodded. Phones recorded. I listened. I reached into the folder I'd been carrying all morning. Pulled out a single page. And handed it to her. She glanced at it. Then frowned. Her face changed. Slowly. Confusion. Doubt. Panic. What is this? She asked. I smiled. That, I said calmly, is the deed to the lake. She laughed nervously. That's not possible. I turned and pointed. See those docks? She nodded. I own every single one. No. We've used them for decades. I nodded. Yes. You have. Years ago, the original developer went bankrupt. The HOA assumed the lake came with the neighborhood. It didn't. It stayed with the original parcel, which I now owned. Every inch. Voices rose. Accusations flew. You're stealing from us. I stayed calm. No. I bought what you never verified. Karen made a call. Then another. Then threatened lawyers. I welcomed it. By the next morning, their attorney had confirmed it. The lake. The shoreline. The docks. All mine. The HOA called an emergency meeting. Residents packed the room. Angry. Confused. Demanding answers. Karen stood at the front. Sweating. She blamed paperwork. Developers. The city. She didn't blame herself. I attended. Quietly. Sat in the back. Until Karen saw me. The room went silent. I stood. I didn't take anything from you, I said. I purchased it legally. Murmurs. I'm willing to lease access, I continued. Conditions. Rules. Liability covered. Reasonable. Some residents nodded. Karen scowled. She didn't want compromise. She wanted control. She rejected the offer. Publicly. Proudly. She assumed pressure would force me to cave. The next morning, I installed legal, permitted locks on every dock. Signs went up. Private property. No trespassing. Social media exploded. Karen rallied residents. Threats followed. I documented everything. They sued. And lost. Quickly. Legal fees drained the HOA. Special assessments hit residents. Karen resigned. A new board approached me. Respectfully. We signed a fair lease. Access restored. Karen never apologized. She moved. That evening, I sat on my dock. Sunset over water. Kayaks gliding peacefully. Quiet restored. They stormed in demanding my lake. They left understanding something far more important. Ownership isn't about what you assume. It's about what's written. The new HOA board learned something Karen never did. Ownership isn't loud. It doesn't storm in wearing polos. It doesn't demand. It waits. And the lake waited. Every ripple on the water reflected something they had taken for granted for years: access without permission. Now they had to ask. That summer felt different for everyone. Residents stood at the shoreline, staring at the docks they once used freely. Some were angry. Some embarrassed. Some finally curious enough to read documents. Questions started spreading faster than blame. How did this happen? Did we ever own it? Why didn't anyone check? Karen's name surfaced again and again. I didn't have to say much. The documents spoke for themselves. Original plats. Developer filings. County records. Clear as day. The HOA had managed lawns and mailboxes, not water rights. They never owned the lake. They only inherited an assumption. The lawsuit they rushed into cost them more than money. Trust eroded. Neighbors stopped believing leadership. Meetings turned tense. Every decision was questioned. Karen's style of rule by confidence had poisoned the board long before I arrived. I was just the moment it cracked. One evening, a man knocked on my door. Mid-50s. Tired eyes. No clipboard. I'm on the new board, he said. I wanted to apologize. I nodded. Not surprised. We thought you were trying to take something from us, he admitted. I gestured toward the lake. I didn't take anything, I said. I bought something you never verified. He exhaled slowly. That's on us. Some residents asked why I didn't just sell the lake back. The answer was simple. Because selling rewards negligence. Leasing teaches responsibility. The new HOA board came prepared. Insurance policies. Maintenance plans. Clear boundaries. No shouting. No entitlement. Just professionalism. We negotiated like adults. Access hours. Dock usage limits. Environmental protections. Simple rules. Rules that respected the land and the owner. They signed. So did I. The locks came off. Quietly. No announcement. No ceremony. Kayaks returned to the water. Fishing lines cast again. But something had changed. People waved now. They asked before docking. They respected signs. Ownership had been clarified, and with it, behavior improved. Amazing what happens when people understand limits. Karen believed power came from enforcement. From fines. From threats. From volume. She never understood that real authority comes from legitimacy. She had none. Karen moved away. No farewell. No statement. Just gone. Her house sold quietly. Like the power she thought she had. At night, the lake reflected the stars. Calm again. No shouting. No clipboards. Just water doing what it had always done, existing without caring who claimed it. New residents asked questions now. Who owns what? What does the HOA really control? Transparency replaced assumption. That alone made the ordeal worth it. Some people thought I was ruthless. Others thought I was fair. I didn't correct either. Because boundaries don't need applause. The HOA claimed they wanted community. What they practiced was control. The moment control disappeared, community actually began. One evening, I sat on the dock. Kids laughed in the distance. Water lapped softly. The same people who once stormed in now asked politely. And I always answered kindly. People asked why I didn't argue the first day. Why I didn't shout back. Because the truth doesn't need volume. It only needs time. Owning land isn't about denying others joy. It's about protecting responsibility. I never wanted the lake to be empty. I wanted it to be respected. The first rule the new board passed? No enforcement without verification. Funny how one lake rewrote an entire culture. A year later, a new family moved in. I saw the boxes. The excitement. I smiled. And no one stormed in. The lake stayed quiet. The docks stayed solid. And the neighborhood finally understood something simple. You don't own what you assume. You own what you can prove. They stormed in demanding my lake. They left knowing the difference between authority and ownership. And the water? It never cared either way.